I'm David Cuff, and today I will be sharing personal workflow strategies. If you're familiar with workflow, it's a term that, someone said, time management and some other things, but workflow isn't necessarily all about time. It's all about how you get done your managing or your tasks and your responsibilities with an organized approach. And then also I'm going to go over some of the tools that we could use for that strategy. And so personal workflow strategies, it's basically a structured approach to organizing and maintaining your tasks and responsibilities. And so the first thing I want to go over is the big idea, right? The big idea is that consistent habits are the critical part of your personal workflow system. You have to find your rhythm. Now, there's not one size fits all for a personal workflow. That's why it's called a personal workflow. So what works for me will not necessarily work for you. But every, personal workflow should have some basic disciplines, if you will, and that is consistent habits. And so finding your rhythm, you can find a place where you focus on your work. And so even if you're traveling, you have a set place in your hotel or you have a set place. That's helpful. It's not essential. And then building a routine. What I do is I try to set my desktop up. I have multiple screens, and I have one screen for my project management. I have another screen for the actual work that I'm doing. I have another screen for my calendar. And so it just helps me get right into my work because I basically have set up this routine every time. And then I would also say use your favorites. Stick with the apps and to-do lists that you like. Don't just move into some new technology because you think it's going to make you faster and better. The most critical part is your consistent habits. And then if you can employ newer technologies to accelerate those habits that you're forming, that's even better. And then a critical component is stay positive. Start each task with a can-do attitude, and don't worry about any time wasted or any traps that you might find yourself in, like scrolling through Facebook for, long periods of time. And then you start feeling like, oh man, I blew it. Well, no, just start with a fresh attitude. If you've wasted some time, then just keep going. Do the next thing with a positive attitude. Because at the end of the day, that positive attitude will build momentum and keep you going on your personal journey of an efficient workflow system. Now, I want to share some key strategies. Now, these key strategies are core principles that you set to create your own personal workflow. So these are ideas and strategies that may or may not work for you. And as we look at them, they're important. They're disciplines, right? So for instance, you set an inbox time, morning and evening. Now, this is critical. Back in the day, I used to use a day timer and then a day runner. These were the paper systems prior to the internet and many of the different software time management systems. And every day I used to take my list from the day before, and whatever was not completed on my task list, I would copy and literally write out on the next day. And someone would say, that's just so inefficient. On the other hand, it caused me to review and mentally think about those things that I'm going to need to get done the next day. And then when I got into work the next morning, I would open up to my task list and I would review it again, set my priorities for the day, and get marching and check them off as I got them done. That was one of the most critical things in my life as a beginning knowledge worker, so that I wouldn't get lost in the day-to-day shuffle of managing my time and multiple priorities. Now, then another part of a good workflow strategy is setting deep time or deep think time, where you don't answer your emails. You don't even check your emails. Maybe even you put your phone on silent and you eliminate all of the distractions that normally exist in our bombarding, lifestyle of information that comes at us constantly, and notifications and all kinds of stuff. You set a deep think time. Now, you can also set an email time. because if you're like many people, you probably find yourself checking your email constantly and interrupting this deep think time and literally changing the bandwidth of your brain over to some other topic very briefly is exhausting at the end of the day. But if you have deep think time, eliminate your interruptions, focus on what you're supposed to be doing, and then schedule times or, just afternoon, morning, afternoon, evening to check your email. And then you can also create a list of interrupters, right? Nobody gets through except that list that you create, right? In my case, it's family and emergency. The other case, it's my current team, my current project team. Who am I working with on what I'm working on is important, right? If they're going to give me new pieces of information, that's critical. That's going to change what I'm working on. Then I keep that line of communication open. And then also new business and key decision makers. If sales is a big part of what you do and responding to people who need you, right? You let those in, to request information and those kind of things. And you check those statuses often because sales is a big part. And again, this is a customized list. This is my list that I use, but it may not necessarily be your list. And then finally, set breaks and rewards for mental clarity, right? So you should set times where you just walk away, or you check your Facebook, right? Or you check your Instagram, or you check whatever it is that is really kind of a decompress, non-mental taxing time. You're just looking through stuff or reading the news or watching a YouTube video or whatever, but you set limits on that and you reward yourself for hard work, deep think times with those mental breaks. Remember, the key to any workflow strategy is managing yourself and disciplining yourself to keep on track for what you've set as your personal workflow strategy. Now, here's some workflow tools that I utilize, and they're pretty much, in my opinion, essential for a busy knowledge worker, right? First is your inbox. Now, I want to know what you're thinking. Oh, well, I already know my inbox. It's part of my email. No, that's not the inbox I'm talking about. You may wind up using your Gmail or your Outlook or whatever email system you use as your main inbox. But what this is, it's a place to keep all your new information that is to be processed. I use ClickUp. I'll go into that in a little while. But if you've ever read the book Getting Things Done by, I believe his name is Josh Allen, his last name is Allen. Anyways, it's basically taking all of the scraps of paper on your desk that you need to get to, all of your emails, all of your notifications within your various tools that you have, and you place them all into this one place called an inbox. And from there, you set priorities and schedules. Now, if you can get it done within 2 minutes or less, according to Josh Allen, you just do it now, right? You don't put it in your inbox, you just do it, right? But if it's going to take you any longer than a couple of minutes or has multiple steps, we would call that a project. You put it in your inbox. Now, I have an inbox that I learned from Tiago Forte, and it's a system called Para. This is another tool. Now, he talks about it in his book called Second Brain, which I'll mention that in a moment. But this tool, it's an organization system called Para, which means alongside, right? So this organization system comes alongside you in your efforts to manage your workflow. And you separate everything into 4 key areas. Projects, which includes tasks, right? Things you've got to get done, things you're currently working on. Then areas. These are areas that you're responsible for. An area is not necessarily completed once you get through a number of tasks. It's an ongoing area of responsibility. For instance, your finances, that's an area. Another one is your health. Another area is maybe managing a team within the company that you work in. These are areas of responsibility. Your children are areas of responsibility, right? And then you have resources. These are tools or articles or bits of information that you want to organize that you'll need in the future. You just don't need it right now. But when you're working on your projects and you have tasks, this is a place where you go to find information to help you get done what you're working on. And so we call that resources, right? This could be, you know, an article on how to organize, you know, an employment application, and you're looking to hire somebody at your company. And so you go back to these resources where you learned a lot about hiring somebody, and you review those articles and details, and then you move it into your project area, this folder now that you're working on. You have all these resources that you put into your project that you kept in cold storage in your resources folder for ages. And then finally, archive. Once you're done with a project, you throw it into archive, right? And now you never delete anything, you just throw it into archives. And the beauty about online systems now, digital workflow organizers like Para, is that you never have to delete anything, and you can always search for something. And at any given time, you can pull out archived folders and put them right into projects when you need them again. So this system isn't like, oh, where do I buy Para? There is no system to buy Para. You can implement it into any system that you currently have. And not only that, you can have it in multiple systems, like on your Google Drive or on your OneDrive in Microsoft. You can put these folders, the same type of list of folders, projects, areas, resources, archive. You can organize these systems according to Para. Even in your email, you have different labels in Gmail, or you have different folders in Outlook, where you organize it into Para, projects, areas, resources, and archives. And you utilize this system throughout all of your organization. And now that brings me to the third tool, which is your second brain. This system, if you manage it and maintain it and organize it and label it properly, let's say about an hour a week, you go in and you start going through your notes and you label them, what's important to you, really what strikes your interest, what builds inspiration. You keep these in this system, you maintain new information, so that when you are working on a project, you don't have to go out and research, because you already have a whole body of information that was really important to you in the past. You use your second brain. So when you're preparing for a meeting and you've got to get ready with a bunch of stuff that is, you know, going to take you hours of information to go find, you don't have to do that. It's now in your second brain. And you, by the way, you just put various notes, even recordings, transcripts of ideas that you have. You just throw everything into the second brain, and when you need it, you can call it up at any time with a search engine. And now that AI is a new tool, it can actually take gobs of information, 1,500 pages of information on one search within your own area or Para organization system, and Gemini will then literally give you an answer from your own notes. It's an amazing thing. Think about it as being a student here, getting all these notes in your classes, and you just give them titles and you give them descriptions, and then your AI system can find it at a needed time. Like at the end of the semester, when you're going to take your test, it can then organize all your notes into an easy study sheet for your test. Now, let's move on to another tool in personal workflows, and that's templates. This makes sense, right? In the past, we used to create Word documents with, our name and our address up at the top, our logo at the top right, and then a footer down at the bottom. It would have various details of our company, and we would create this as a letterhead, if you will, in Word. Well, now we take that same principle, which saves us some time when we're creating a new document. Now we take that same principle for large projects, right? For example, at LocalView, we do websites. We've done so many websites, and we know how many steps and what happens in each one of those steps, that we've now created templates. We take that template every time we get a new website to build, and we use it as the roadmap, if you will, to build the new website. So think about it in terms maybe of a proposal. You have a certain aspect or detail about your company, and you have, all about, your particular company and why you should why somebody should choose your company. You also have the details of how you work and your customer service. All that is templated. and then the details of what this particular client is requesting, as far as pricing and so forth. You have that section as empty and ready to create, and then the conclusion and other details of the proposal are all templated, and you just use that template as part of your workflow to save you tons of time. And then finally, you have Google, or excuse me, AI, which is Google, Gemini, you have ChatGPT, and you also have AI now built into many different tools, project management tools, time management tools, even in document creation. Back in the day, some early versions was in Grammarly. Grammarly would actually help you, and it's an AI tool, but now it's become more widely used and available in many different applications. And we're going to go through that in just a moment. Some examples. So show us your workflow. I can hear you guys saying it right now. It's on the tip of your tongue. Show us your workflow. How does all this work for you? Well, I'm glad you asked. So the first thing I want to show you is we're going to be looking at ClickUp, Inbox, and Para. How does this all work for you, David? Okay, so here's my email, right? Don't read my email, it's private. Anyways, all right, so we're in my inbox, right? Now I've got 3 lessons that I need to study for a business networking group that I'm involved with called BNI. And so I've been assigned training programs for their leadership program. Okay, so I can just open up my email and start going through the work and listen to the webinars or the details that I have to do for this class, but I don't have time. It's going to be is it going to be under 2 minutes? Remember, that's the big question. There's no way. Each one of these is going to take me at least a half hour, right? So this, we would call that a project to be added to my Para. So watch what I do. I just open it up and I forward it over to my ClickUp system and I send it to my inbox, right? And I probably don't need my signature in there. So I clean all this up and I send it over. So now that is archived out of my inbox. So it eliminates it from my Gmail inbox and puts it into my main inbox. So if I go over to ClickUp, this is my task management system. You can have your own, by the way. Google Gmail has a task list that you can easily, and I'll show you that in a moment how it works. But let's go to mine, right? So I'm going to go over to my favorites and my Para inbox. And here's my Para inbox. Here's the tasks that I need. I've just thrown them all in here, right? So here is my training program. So I open this up. I assign it to me. I assign a date for it. We'll say by tomorrow. And I can actually put it into a folder that makes sense. And so I move it to a folder and I have my own personal list. And I can also create a different list. Now, when I close this, it gets removed from my Para inbox into the area that I need. Now, ClickUp has its own list, so that stuff that's a priority for me shows up. But also, by the way, this same tool works when I delegate to my team. So my team is also in ClickUp, and I can send it to myself, to my inbox, but assign it to them and then move it to the particular client or project that they're working on. And then when I'm finished, it will leave my Para inbox and be delegated to that team member on my team. So that's how I use my Para inbox along with a ClickUp, okay? The next one I want to show you is research in Gemini, right? So let's get over to another tool here, and that is Gemini, right? So in Gemini, what I want to show you is how you can do some amazing research here. So this is the advanced version. I'm on the trial, but it's included in Google Workspace. So ChatGPT is free, or you can have the paid version as well. So both of these function very much within research as the same. By the way, Bing also has a chat version of search where now AI is used, and also Google is using its own AI in search. But nonetheless, let's say I say to Gemini, I say, give me the most important components to a sales presentation. And even if I misspell, Gemini can figure it out. So Gemini is going to give me the most important components to a sales presentation. Opening strong, understanding the problem. How about if I say sales proposal? Give me the most important parts to a sales proposal. Gemini says the executive summary, problem statement needs, proposed solution, pricing and terms, implementation plan, case studies and call to action, contact information, and some additional considerations. Very thorough, and then you can then boil this down and say, can you be more concise? There you go. Boom. All right. So remember this, though. Something important to note is that AI is amazing, right? But it's only as good as the questions you ask it. So think of AI as an assistant, right? If I was to say, can you give me the details about a sales proposal? Well, that person then goes out and finds one of your sales proposals, Joe's Plumbing, and says, yeah, so you quoted Joe, this much for a website, this much for SEO, and this much for social media. And you say, no, I didn't want the proposal about Joe. I didn't want the details about Joe's proposal. I wanted what are the details of every sales proposal. Oh, so then your sales assistant goes out and starts doing research and looking at other things. So the critical component of using AI is the questions you ask it. And think of it in terms of an assistant that comes alongside of you. Now, remember, many people are afraid of AI, right? AI is going to take my job. Well, actually, those who leverage AI as part of their knowledge worker position that they hold will actually be more effective and more powerful at what they're doing. So think about it in that way. Another example that I want to show you is in Gmail, all right? Because I'm using Gemini Advanced, I'm going to go and show you in just a second here. Under Gmail, watch this. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? This is amazing. How much did I spend on Amazon this month? All right, so I copied and pasted this, so excuse me. So let's see how Gemini does with this one. All right, so he goes out and reviews all my emails and comes back with waiting. I have 156,000 emails, so that's why it's taking him a bit. You spent $97.67 on Amazon, and it has 6 sources. I've bought 6 different things for my fish tank at Amazon. So there you go. And so think of other examples that you can use Gemini for Gmail for. And, how much did I pay a particular vendor for the month of July? If all those emails are saved and they've sent you receipts, Gemini can do that for you and speed up your workflow. The last thing I want to show you as far as an example is Google Drive, right? So if you go over to Google Drive and Gemini is there, and we say, find my PDF. And by the way, we have 1.5 terabytes of information at LocalView. And so 10 years worth of information is stored on the Google Drive. So I say, find my PDF on creating a one-liner, right? And so Gemini goes out, and here we go. Here are some relevant files: how to create a one-liner PDF, creating a one-liner worksheet, and creating a one-liner PDF. And I can actually click on those. They'll open up, and there's my worksheet. And that's searching through, as I mentioned, 1.5 terabytes of information. So we have covered quite a bit, and there's more, but for the sake of time, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions, if you have any, and I will stay on for as long as any of you would like. If you need to duck out, I get it.